When a room full of Oxford scholars suddenly goes silent, people pay attention. But when that silence is caused by one Filipino dish, the world starts asking questions, because no one expected something so simple and so humble to have that kind of power. And this is the story of how a dish born in Filipino homes stunned one of the most respected universities on earth and changed the way people viewed Filipino food forever. And it all started when a visiting professor from the Philippines was asked to present not only a lecture but a cultural item that represented the heart of Filipino identity. And instead of bringing textbooks, artifacts, or traditional instruments, he walked in with a small clay pot filled with something warm, something aromatic, something that carried the soul of generations. And the moment he opened it, the entire hall slowly quieted down as if every person there realized something extraordinary was happening. And that dish was adobo, the iconic Filipino dish known in almost every Filipino household from north to south. And yet it was about to do something no one imagined. Because Oxford was used to grand presentations, fine dining samples, and world-famous culinary demonstrations, but it was not prepared for the simple power of soy sauce, vinegar, garlic, peppercorns, bay leaves, and tender meat cooked slowly until every bite tasted like a story. But before the taste came, the aroma, and the aroma alone was enough to shift the entire energy of the room. Because as soon as the pot lid was lifted, a wave of warm savory scent spread like a quiet wind, gentle but impossible to ignore, and it wrapped around the scholars like an invisible hand, pulling their attention toward something they had never sensed before. And suddenly, conversations stopped typing, slowed, and eyes focused as though everyone could feel that this dish held something deeper than flavor, something emotional, something personal, something cultural. And the professor smiled because he knew this reaction was not planned, but was natural. Because adobo has always been more than just a dish. It is comfort in difficult times, celebration during victories, strength during storms, and unity in every Filipino home. And now Oxford was experiencing all of that, without even tasting it yet. And then the moment came when the first group of scholars approached to examine the dish, expecting something exotic, complicated, or intimidating, but what they saw was simple meat in a dark sauce. Nothing fancy, nothing towering, nothing decorated with edible flowers or artistic garnishes. And yet this simplicity confused them because they could smell depth, history, and complexity, coming from something that looked so humble. And then the first scholar took a bite. A tiny bite, small enough to be polite but large enough to judge, and the moment the flavor landed on his tongue, his eyes widened in a way he could not hide, because the balance of salty, sour, and savory hit him like a quiet explosion. And just like that, he froze, not in shock, but in realization, because he tasted centuries of tradition hidden under the simplest ingredients. And then the second scholar tasted it, then the third, and one by one the reactions were the same, eyes widening, breath pausing, heads tilting slightly as if they were trying to understand how something so unassuming could deliver such depth. And soon the room fell into complete silence. The kind of silence people remember. The kind that only happens when the brain is too busy processing something unexpected. And the professor watched as the silence spread like ripples on calm water. And in that silence, every scholar was tasting not only food but history, resilience, and identity. Because adobo is not a chef's invention, it is a people's invention, shaped by families, passed down through generations, adapted by time but always staying true to its soul. And in that moment, Oxford tasted the soul of the Philippines, and the impact was so strong that after the tasting session, instead of returning to their work, students lined up to ask deeper questions about Filipino culture, cooking methods, regional differences, and the story behind every ingredient. And one scholar even said that this dish captured something rare, a flavor that felt honest, grounded, and emotionally rich. And because of that, Oxford invited the professor again. This time not for a simple cultural exchange, but to present a full lecture on Filipino food as a legitimate academic subject, something that rarely happened before. And that lecture sparked more curiosity across other universities, leading to discussions about how food carries the history of colonization, survival, creativity, and adaptation. And adobo became the symbol of that conversation, a quiet ambassador of Filipino identity, and soon chefs from different countries wanted to try their own versions. Food critics wrote about it, Culinary students studied its flavor structure, and travelers flew to the Philippines just to taste it in its homeland, and the professor never expected any of this because all he brought was a dish that every Filipino already knew. A dish cooked by parents after long days, served during family gatherings, prepared during storms, when only vinegar could keep food from spoiling, and shared with neighbors during hard times. But this was the dish that made Oxford go silent, because sometimes the most powerful things come from the humblest places. And sometimes the world needs to be reminded that greatness does not always come from luxury. Sometimes it comes from the pot on your grandmother's stove, the recipe passed down from memory, the flavor that tastes like home even when you were thousands of miles away. And this story traveled far-reaching Filipinos abroad who felt proud that their everyday dish had touched one of the world's most respected schools, and it reminded them that Filipino culture should never be underestimated, because it carries strength, heart, and history in ways people do not always see. And more countries began embracing Filipino food festivals, culinary classes, and cultural exchanges, all sparked by one moment of silence. An Oxford created by one dish cooked with love, and to this day people still talk about that event. The day a room full of brilliant minds went silent because of adobo, proving that food is not just food. It is a language, a memory, a story, and the Filipino story is one the world will never forget.